Welcome to the Power Platform Show. Thanks for joining me today. I hope today's guest inspires and educates you on the possibilities of the Microsoft Power Platform. Now, let's get on with the show. In this episode, we're going to focus on automation to AI and the journey that our guest has gone on. Today's guest is from Toronto in Canada. He's a dynamic leader with deep expertise in supply chain and digital solutions. He founded and led a team that established an intelligent automation center of excellence, focusing on robotic automation or RPA, as well as a Microsoft Power Platform. You can find links to his bio and socials in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Well, thank you for having me, Mark. Glad to be here.
Good to have you on the show. I always like to start with food, family, and fun, so my guests can know you outside the tech discussion that we're going to have.
Sounds good. So, family, food, and fun. I've been married 17 years this year. Been with my wife for 21. She's a high school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
2 kids, 10-year-old daughter and 8-year-old son. My daughter is pretty much a carbon copy of me. She's more artistic, though. I'll give her that. So she loves art and Lego, and she's an aspiring architect. So this summer I said we can look at getting like a 3D printer and getting her to start introducing to more tech and using design tools to build her own structures, if you will, right?
Epic.
And my son, he's a natural athlete. Exact opposite of me. Loves all sports, plays all sports, really into soccer, European football, and that's the family. In terms of food, Italian, Canadian, pasta and barbecue. Keep it simple, right?
Nice.
All different kinds of forms of pasta. We must eat it 4 or 5 times a week. Like if it's not the main dish, it's part of the side. And you can do it so many different ways. So it's always, interesting. You can fill it. You can red sauce, white sauce, cream sauce, butter, all kinds of stuff there. And I do barbecue year round, even in the winter. Got the setup here that I go year round. When it snows, I just shovel a path to the barbecue and keep on grilling, right? In terms of fun,
I love it. That's cool. Yeah.
In terms of fun, I do enjoy music. Classic rock, predominantly 90s rock as well. I play guitar, I sing. I do jam nights, open mic nights. So if I'm ever traveling or whatnot, I always find out where's the local pub that's doing like a jam session or a karaoke and try to take part if I can. Got a couple spots around the city I like to go to. Sometimes I might go once or twice in a year, and there'll be other times you just get in the mood and you'll go every week for 2-3 months, right? So it's just a passion of mine that I do to unwind at the end of the day. One of the coolest things last year, though, because it's an evening thing, right? So last year, I actually brought the family out one night. There's a full band setup, and I'm up there doing Rockin' in the Free World. And just spur of the moment, I just single out to my son because he's kind of singing along, and I'm like, hey, come up on stage. So he comes up, and he's singing the chorus. And I got all that on video, so that's kind of like a proud moment last year where it was like, they know I go, but it's not, typically family-friendly, after hours,
Yeah.
So we're able to bring him out and actually do a set with my son, so that was a lot of fun.
That's so cool. I love it. Tell me about your first exposure to Microsoft technology. How did you get involved in tech? And particularly, your journey into automation. How did that start for you?
Well, if we go to like an origin story, I would say Excel macros.
Awesome. Good.
But in terms of Power Platform, it's really within the last couple of years. So I always used, Excel pretty much runs the world before, Power Platform, if you will. But macros were the way to automate work. I'm not a developer. I can do some simple coding. So I used macros a lot in Access databases to make myself more efficient, right? And then as time went on, and I got introduced to the Power Platform a couple of years ago through the automation team. It was around 2020, right when COVID hit. We were looking for something that was, call it a little more user-friendly with an interface than the traditional RPA tools. And we were looking at a couple of different options, doing a couple of different proof of concepts. And it just so happens that we went with the Power Platform, and it was no turning back after that.
So give us a sense of a feel for the size of the organization and the geography it operates it in, maybe the industry operates in. We can't necessarily talk about the name of the org, but what can you tell us about the sizing of the work you did from an automation perspective?
Well, you have office users and store users, like people in the actual retail stores. Grocery industry, we had over 10,000 licenses, right? So it was at that kind of scale, if you will. And we were also doing portals at the time. I guess it's Pages now. But so we were doing Canvas apps, model-driven apps, Power Automate, and the portals as well. Probably about 10,000 users is where we were at, but we were potentially scaling to close to 100,000 if we went full tilt to end state.
Wow. And so this is a brand, obviously, that runs coast to coast in Canada.
Yeah, coast to coast. The idea and the vision at the time was, every employee has an app, whether you're a part-time clerk working in a department. A couple of the, pilots we were doing at the time was really targeted to like that end user on the floor interacting with the customer. So when you think of the scale of who's in the store and how many people there are, that's kind of what we were looking at, was probably over 100,000 users would have been end state. Think something as simple as, this was the classic example, just to give people an idea of where you could go with the technology. Cleaning logs in a retail store, right?
Yeah.
Usually once an hour on a clipboard, you're checking the time that you swept the floor. You mark down if it was wet and you put up a wet floor sign. Imagine doing that in a simple Canvas app and then uploading pictures at the same time. So if there was like a slip, trip, fall incident, or if there was an area that was wet and you mopped it up and put up a sign, you could take the picture to show the state you left it in, which could help with an investigation later if somebody actually, trips, slips, or falls. You could augment it with Power Automate to send reminders to store managers and department managers. Hey, staff's supposed to do this every hour. It's been 2 since it's last been checked. You might want to go prompt someone to go check. And you can escalate those as required based on the needs of the business, right? So that was kind of the vision on where we wanted to go. And we had a couple of pilots in that space.
I like it. When I was living in London 5 or 6 years ago, one of the things that I started defining is like, what are real world use cases that kind of fit well with building an app? And Clipboard app, one of the metaphors I used was a clipboard app, right? Which is anything that you would have a checklist that you would go, have a form that that had been designed maybe years ago, and go through. You'd often write your name on it, the date, maybe a time, and then check what you needed to do, right? And the thing is that it's a very dumb set of data, and that someone needed to eyeball it. And then you have an app. And the first time when I was thinking about it back then was in the airline industry. Same type of thing. They have checks on air bridges, they have checks on everything, right? There's so many checks being done all the time. But now, because somebody is logged in, you automatically know exactly who it is that did this. There's no kind of, I can't read the name. You have a timestamp, so you know exactly when it happened. If you've enabled, any kind of location tracking, you know exactly where the thing happened. And so all of a sudden, you're collecting a whole range of data points that your old method just never had. And of course, the beauty of that, you can then find patterns. You can find, what repeats over and over. Is the pattern at an individual level? Is it at a location level? And all of it, it's what I call digital exhaust starts to give you more data to make decisions with, which was nobody specifically put their name, put their location, put the time, date. That was just inherited as part of using a digital platform. And so give me some examples. That was a really good one of the spillage. What other type of use cases were you starting to develop on?
Oh, there were so many, and you just triggered my memory on one, because like checklist was a whole category on its own that we would talk about. That was really, if anyone listening says, what's a good place to start with Canvas apps? Checklists, hands down, a great way to get your hands on the tool and learn with it and get data that you didn't have before. We had a fresh program, okay? It was, once a week, throughout the course of the week, you go through department, store manager has a checklist. There's over 200 questions on the checklist. And they would basically rate the departments in the store on how they were performing that week. So you imagine you got 200 store managers. They're doing this every day of the week, 200 some odd questions. And the method that was in place before we automated it was all in Excel. So now you have 200 Excel files being emailed to a central person whose job was to aggregate them together into yet another file to create some pivot charts that would then go out to leadership on the Monday or whatnot. Wash, rinse, repeat. So we turned that one into a Canvas app. And then the beauty of it was twofold. We layered in Power BI, right? And then that was the vision to say, imagine a dashboard at the back of the store where you got a Power BI report that can now give you real-time metrics on how the store is performing, in their region, in their banner, get a little bit of healthy competition going, all in real time. And you had the ability to, this was the other part that was, observed in doing it that wasn't intended going in. Those questions can change, right? So something can happen that would make a certain category or certain area be more important, or one that didn't exist. COVID's a classic example. I'm sure there were items on that checklist that before COVID didn't exist and after they do. So if you think of the old way, if you have to add in some new items, do some new categories, it's all manual. Whereas in a Canvas app, you literally just update your list, refresh, and promote the app, right? And it's all real time. We could put toggle switches on there that could say during seasons, if there are certain things in a season, toggle a section on or off, right? So that was a really good one about incorporating Power BI and giving real-time metrics and extra layers of data. And just to see the engagement from the supporting teams going crazy on Power BI and splicing the data, they were getting insights to things they didn't have before because they just had an aggregated view. Whereas now we're giving them individual answers to every single question so they can start to see new patterns that they didn't have before. So it was really, really good adoption on that one. And then there was, we were discussing this one before, the COVID tracking app. That was a very specific use case, a one of, but that is the one that kind of launches down the Power Platform to say, okay, there's something here. It was basically COVID hits, everyone shuts down, but you have to identify incidents where there was a COVID exposure, right? And people on a leave as a result. And you had to do all that tracking, and there was regulations involved with that and everything else, and certain rules you had to adhere to. So the beauty of that one was in a 2-week period, we were able to meet with the business, get the requirements, design the app, develop it, test it, do user training, and then do a mass deploy to 1,000 users in one shot in a 2-week period. That was our first app.
Wow.
So, when you think about what you can do with the technology, never building an app before, supported with Microsoft, we had some resources available to help train us and help guide us through that process. But to do all that work in 2 weeks, whereas prior to COVID, it would have taken 2 weeks just to do a kickoff meeting, right?
Yeah.
So that was the one that really launched us to say, we've got something here. And then we started coupling it with the RPA tools, right? And really where we got to some exciting stuff was integrating the Power Platform with the traditional RPA tools. So then we created a model-driven app. This one took a lot of time, but it was pretty slick. We created a model-driven app that we called like a control station, right? Mm-hmm. Like mission control, if you will. And we had a process that required manual work, setting up data in the system. And there was various steps in setting up this data and different use cases that would apply. So then what we did is we said, okay, we're going to create bots that will do the work to create the data in the system. But depending on the scenario, we may want someone to manually do the work. And there were different parameters, if you will, combinations of parameters that would dictate the sequence in which things needed to be set up. So what we did is we created a model-driven app that would track the progress of setting up the data, whether it be a new item, new store, what have you. And then through that app, they could trigger whether it would be automated or manual. So when they would do the initial upload, they would set up all the data to say, here's what needs to go in the system. Here's the steps that would be automated. Here's the steps that would be manual. And then they would use that model-driven app to then kick off the RPA tools or to notify someone manually to go do the work. And you can manage it all end-to-end centrally, right? And that replaced a whole slew of what used to be emails and follow-ups and meetings and chats. And you could all do it centrally through the model-driven app as your command center, and then either executing people to upload data manually or triggering an RPA bot to do it automatically, right? That one really took off, and it took about a year to iron out and get going. But that was one of the more complicated ones that we had developed.
That's phenomenal, right? As in just as you're talking, I'm like thinking, oh, this is where some of the AI story comes out nowadays around taking all that, email chains that go round and round and all these kind of manual things that often have to happen inside business process, inside an organization that can be automated. And you are doing it there with Power Automate and RPA tools and things like that, which obviously has a massive impact in the repetitive, mundane work for a lot of people, right? Allows them to focus on other things. Tell me, what are you seeing in the AI and BPM integration space, and what future career opportunities you're potentially seeing around that space where, we've had Power Automate, particularly, let's take that as a tool, and we could talk about Blue Prism, we could talk about what's the other one that's quite
UiPath.
UiPath, right, in market. And when I look at where Power Automate is going with its now integration to AI and the ability to take dumb data and make it intelligent. And what I mean by that is, let's say, ingesting an email, which is, text, and using AI to understand what the text is and then perhaps update another system with that data without any human interaction. In other words, it knows it can, because it can read it, it can understand the context of it, it can understand its application, any data around where it came from, how it got to be in the inbox at inception point. So I'm seeing this convergence of automation and AI and the ability to create much more intelligent systems. Error handling built in by default, telemetry data captured as part of that, rather than the old way, an email arrives, the person that is the interceptor of it's going to copy and paste a bunch of data out of that, maybe into other systems, and then workflows are triggered off from that point. Bringing me back to my question, AI, business process management, integration, and what are the career opportunities now you're seeing for folks to really up the game so much more with AI?
Rolling out Microsoft 365 Copilot licenses isn't enough. You need an adoption plan to get people using it well. In our new book, published by Microsoft, we offer a practical guide to successful Copilot adoption. Many leaders believe in the why of Copilot and AI, but they need guidance on how, from practical frameworks to enabling champions and measuring impact. Get your copy of Microsoft 365 Copilot Adoption now from Amazon, or find a link in the show notes.
I'm really not sure how to answer that question, to tell you the truth, because I feel like there's still a lot of unknowns, right? There's definitely something in that space. Like, you can see it, right? And even the way you're talking about it there, right? The devil's in the details. And I haven't had enough exposure myself to make a statement, if you will, on predicting where the job opportunities are going to be. There's definitely something in that space, and time will tell what it morphs into. But what drives AI is data, right? And we looked, we looked at so many different BPM tools and process mining tools and all that, and they all promise the world. And there are some really good use cases, but it's always devils in the details. So I think it's an area worth exploring. And I think as we start to get some use cases coming out of it, there will be lessons learned, which will then turn into, okay, where are the job opportunities? So I think, where we're at right now is more of an exploratory phase of this is an area that has a lot of potential, not quite sure where it makes sense and where it doesn't make sense. And then out of that will kind of come into the skill sets and the jobs required to fully integrate them, right? Like, one of the examples I'll pull from the RPA world is we were always told, plugins with Outlook, right?
Yep.
You can get a plugin for Outlook, and you can ingest data from an email, and you can trigger a bot that way and use the data in the email to trigger your automation and collect your data. It's not that simple. And even when you build it, the ongoing maintenance is not worth the effort, or at least for us, it wasn't. So that is actually one of the reasons we started using the Canvas apps, because what we were saying was, instead of using an inbox and an email to trigger an RPA automation, we will insert into the process a Canvas app to cleanse data right up front before it gets through the automation. We had a lot of success with that. We ended up with quicker solutions, better quality data, and less maintenance required after the fact. So that was my experience with automation and BPM, if you will. And I'm not quite sure what the lessons will be or what have been so far when you augment it with AI. So I guess if I were to sum all that up based on the experience from the RPA world, you really need to have business knowledge, right? Those exceptions, like for the AI engine to work, you got to have good input data. And if you're talking about business process, BPM within a company, well, that's proprietary to that company. You might not have enough data to drive the engine, and it may not be good quality. So, you can get some general things where there's shared across industry, but the nuances of a specific company on what they do is going to be specific to them. And you're going to need people within that company who knows the nuances of our four walls in order to do error handling and exception handling and help define where those parameters are, would be my guess.
Yeah. Any other lessons learned from automation at scale like this?
Nothing's as easy as it seems, right? The devil really is in the details, and it's good to get excited up front and celebrate some quick wins, but you do have to think about the deltas where things change and downtime and maintenance, right? Everyone is excited to build things, but then you tend to forget that you need maintenance, You go out and you buy the car and you're all excited, I got my new car, and then you got to start getting the repairs done, right? And you have a maintenance schedule. It was the same thing with RPA, similar experience with the Power Platform, and I'm going to assume it'll be the same in the AI space. So you can't just build, deploy, and forget. There is ongoing maintenance. An example I'll use is websites, right?
Yeah.
We had a couple that would go in and upload data into a website to submit information on a website. It was a 3-day process that would run once a month. It's one of the first bots we built. And on day 1, the bot's working fine. On day 2, it goes down. You can do all the planning you want up to. You could have all the regression testing, and you can say, I have a fully automated regression tool set that'll run T-1 the day before the bot runs, just to make sure nothing's changed. But it's a 3-day process, and on day 2, the bot goes down. Why does it go down? Because there's elements in the website that changed. Why did those elements change? Because the host of that website is trying to do anti-spam attack stuff. So to make sure their site doesn't get attacked by bots, like malicious bots, they change elements on the site, which affects our bots, which are not malicious. And then we have to go in and perform maintenance mid-process. That's the stuff you don't think about. So you have to start layering into your development cycle maintenance time. And I have no idea what that's going to look like in AI, in an AI augmented world, generative AI, and all the rest of that. But there's going to be an element of that. So that would be a lesson learned, I would say, to be aware of, is think about after X is delivered, what is that maintenance schedule? What is required? And how much effort are you putting in to keep it running? It might be quick to build and deploy, but then you find the maintenance is not worth the effort. And we took a couple of bots offline as a result of that. Didn't really experience it with the Power Apps. Power Apps are they're very agile. I could be on a call with a business partner, and they're asking me to do a change on an app. They have an idea. They have an enhancement. It's a half-hour call. While I'm talking to them, I'm messaging a developer in the background. Can you update this? Can you change that? By the time we're done the call, I already have it deployed and test, and say, okay, you can go and test it. And they're like, what do you mean I can test it? It's that quick. It's that easy.
Yeah. That's cool. I love it. Just as we draw to an end here, we're almost at time. I want to switch gears slightly and just tell me about the market conditions that you're seeing across Canada. And a couple of things I know we've discussed, and I just saw you, a couple of weeks ago. Then I was in Vancouver at the Canadian Power Platform Conference. Tell me the importance around personal branding, network. What are you seeing in this sphere at the moment?
Well, it's a tough market out there right now, right? You're seeing a lot of companies laying off people. Unemployment is going up. And if you're looking at LinkedIn is the number one place to go look for job postings, right? You go on the job section of LinkedIn, and 15 minutes after it's posted, you see over 100 applicants, right? And you got that metric in front of you. It makes you feel bad. It's like it just got posted. There's already over 100 applicants.
Yeah.
So my observation is whether or not there's less jobs available, there's more people chasing the same jobs. And they're good quality people that are more than qualified. So it's a tough market out there. And in terms of branding, that is the question. Everyone says you got to have a brand. What's your brand? I get asked that question all the time. Joe, what's your brand? I don't know. I know what I'm good at. Articulating it is not something I'm good at. But you got to have a brand. And, talking to people to get feedback on how to sum up your brand, if you will, is worth doing, because how you perceive yourself and how you perceive the value you add might be different than someone else. But it's no longer just a resume, right? You don't apply to a job and just say, here's my resume, here's my experience. It's what stands out about you, that is your brand. So find a way to easily articulate in a few minutes to someone why they should invest in you, right? And investment could be either a job, mentorship, 15 minutes of their time to network. All of those things are part of your brand. And you need to be able to articulate to someone to say, I'm applying to a job. Here's why I'm a candidate. I'm in the interview. Here's why you should hire me. Hey, someone's referenced me for networking. Can I have 15 minutes of your time? Well, why should I give you 15 minutes of your time? That's all part of your branding, right? And it's very important to keep the conversations going, because over 100 applicants, what's going to make you stand out?
Yeah. It's interesting. I think the whole world of job application, like you said with a CV, I don't know it scales well as when you say that there are fewer jobs and a higher number of qualified people going for those jobs. And the fact that we are now in a global market more than ever. My customers that I am working with this specific week from New Zealand are located in New York and Canada. And I can do that because of not just creating a brand, because I think a brand you have a brand no matter whether you can articulate it or not, but it's like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola spend a high degree of their money constantly telling people about their brand. And I think the brand needs to be known. It needs to be out there in the market so that you are known for something. But getting known takes a lot of work.
It does.
And it takes time. And but I think it pays phenomenal dividends and opens up massive amount of doors. My experience, it absolutely has. So that's why I don't know. I don't know how the job market was going to be in 5 years, as in from will we even have a concept of a CV or anything like that? I just feel it's such an archaic way of engaging these days for jobs, And heck, a year ago, I left a big company where every time we advertised, I would get all those CVs. And then I've got to choose 5 of them. And how do I choose 5 out of all those? I would often take the person's name and Google them and see if they appeared, like if there was any external tells about this person.
It's interesting, and similar exercises where I was before, and different approaches. But I was at my company for almost 20 years. I had a brand, right? Don't know how to brand myself in the global market, which is part of the process here. Get your name out there. You said Google Joe, see where he is. Hopefully, the link for the podcast comes up. You get to know Joe. But I think it was on another podcast I was listening that I think it was you were on, talking about similar, with Google employees. You're working at Google, and then all of a sudden they start doing layoffs, and you find yourself saying, I've never had to make a resume. What am I going to do? I find myself in that space too, where it's like, didn't plan for being in a global economy where I'm trying to get my name out there on a global scale, because I was inside my 4 walls and life was good. And then you find yourself out here saying, well, what do you do? And, I see this guy, Mark, he seems like a decent guy. I send him a note on LinkedIn and here I am on his podcast, right? It was throwing a Hail Mary pass, right? I said to my wife, I go, I was going to send this guy an email. I saw him on a Microsoft tutorials type thing and seemed like a decent guy. Mark, I didn't even Google you. I just added you on LinkedIn and said, I'll send a message. And then I was like, oh, wow, he's a pretty good guy.
Yeah. So good. So good. Joe, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I'm looking forward to publishing this. It's been great to get to know you. And I cannot believe being on the other side of the world, we've even met in person.
Yeah.
In the short space of time as well. So it's been fantastic to meet you. And thanks again for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If there's a guest you'd like to see on the show, please message me on LinkedIn. If you want to be a supporter of the show, please check out buymeacoffee.com/NZ365 Guy. Stay safe out there and shoot for the stars.